Hello and welcome to the Agile Couple Podcast. I'm Leeanne McManus, and we're excited for you to join us on our third episode, part of our first series. Our first series is called The Language of Clarity, and this episode is called Lost in Translation, The Hidden Cost of Misalignment. So we've had two other episodes so far, and the first episode we talked about radical transparency and the importance of that and kind of what to watch for. And if we were to sum that up, we'd really say that was about mindset. And then our second episode is words we work by, focusing on really domain language and having clarity and in vocabulary and understanding. And that one's about the mechanics, right? So how do we have common language and what does that look like? This episode, we're going to dive into what happens when clarity fails. So there's like a silence, chaos, and misalignment. And this one's more about maintenance. So just to kind of give you a perspective, they're all very kind of tightly woven. They're like a Venn diagram, right? But this one is about maintenance. So we're going to kick this off. So I'm going to let Kevin introduce himself real quick. When you introduce yourself, Kevin, I want you to kind of tell us what you think misalignment looks like on a team. So go ahead and kick us off with that thought.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Kevin McManus, and looking forward to our conversation today. So I guess one of the things that we talk about is why the alignment is really essential for healthy teams. And I think one of the things that alignment does is it's that if you have that shared direction, you got shared energy. So rather than 10 people all moving in different directions, pulling in different directions, you get everybody in alignment. That gives you more force to be able to move forward. And in terms of what we deal with on a regular basis, that means increased velocity, right? The ability to deliver much more quickly while also meeting the actual, requirements of our clients and our customers.
I just pictured a rowing team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a Viking ship where everybody's going at a different cadence and they're spinning all over the place.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things as far as the alignment is concerned for the health of the team is building that trust and safety and making sure, where the team is headed and why they're going in that direction. So that kind of comes back down to that old analogy, you may be on the right bus, but you may not be in the right seat, right? Yeah. And then finally, strategic clarity leads to tactical consistency. So it's kind of like when you're planning a trip, right? We know that we want to go from Idaho to the East Coast, and we want to hit these key points in between. By having that big vision of what the ultimate goal is, what the duration is, and then what are the stops along the way, it allows you to take each one of those legs of the trip and be able to execute that on that tactical basis. Okay, the first 2 days we're going to be here, or when we take a cruise amongst the islands or whatever, you've got a very clear understanding of where you're going to be each day. And that helps you to provide that planning and to make sure that everybody's focused on this is what we're going to be doing, at this particular point.
That's good. So, and we've talked in the other two episodes a lot about symptoms. So what would you say, because these are not that far removed from what we talked about, but what would you say are symptoms of misaligned teams?
I think one of the biggest ones that I've dealt with is not having clarity with regard to priorities, especially when you look at it at an organizational level. Because you may have individual departments that, and this is one of the things I always talk to product owners about, is it's your responsibility to be able to provide what's priority 1, priority 2, priority 3.
Not 4 priority ones?
Yeah, not 4 priority ones, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if that's what happens and you don't provide that clarity, now you've relegated that to the teams to try to figure out which priority is truly priority 1. So if you don't have that clarity, and if you don't have that alignment with regard to what the priorities are, you're going to reinforce and you're going to encourage people to be going in those different directions. I think that's a big one that I've seen a lot.
I think that's it doesn't live up to the sniff test, right? If you're on a team and you don't have clarity on which department's priority is
Right.
it, then it's not ready to be worked on.
Yep.
It's not prioritized enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, for them to do that. Yeah, what else do you got?
Well, I think one of the other, symptoms of misalignment is, and this kind of leads down to that lack of prioritization or clarity on the prioritization, is you either get, passive resistance or active frustration. People want to have that clarity. They want to be able to feel like they're making progress. Right. It's like I've always.
They want to add value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like I always use the analogy, like when I first started golfing, and I don't do that in any significant capacity, but when I first went out with one of my college buddies on the driving range. And when I went out there, I was just like, it's power. It's all about power. And I was tearing
technique.
tearing the turf up, and the balls were just dribbling out. But it's like once I got that one swing and the ball went sailing, it's like you get that little endorphin rush.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that was really cool. I want to do it again. And all the pain that you'd gone through up until that point is gone, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's one of the reasons why when we're working with agile teams and software development is making sure that, you have the ability to get those small wins so that people have that encouragement to go on. If you don't get any type of satisfaction of delivering something for months or longer, then you're not feeding that, and there's no motivation, to be moving forward.
Yeah.
I think one of the other symptoms that I've seen as far as misalignment is the water cooler whispers, where you get a lot of people that it's like, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right. And
Or even worse is like we just sat through the same meeting. We all come out of it going, what are we supposed to do?
Right.
Like, I don't know what we're doing.
or even worse, I think this is what we're doing, and you think that this is what we're doing, right? And I think that it definitely shows that misalignment, and those are the observable symptoms that you can see in teams, and I think everybody can recognize and relate to that.
So I think we have another one here that says leaders say yes to everything but deliver nothing well, and that's really giving no leadership, no guidance, no vision. And so, and also maybe too much a lack of prioritization, right? Too many things that you can't do anything well, that we have to do all these things. So people need to learn how to ask the right questions, and it's okay to say no. Or I guess you have to have the culture where it's okay to say no, but there's sometimes part of how this is successful is with a little pushback.
Yeah.
But pushback in a constructive way, right? So we have too many questions that you can't answer. It's not ready to be worked on.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever that looks like. But that doesn't always fit in every organization, which is why we're having these conversations. And a lot of these things are not simple. They're simple, but they're not easy to do.
Yeah.
Right? Simple solutions, but hard to do with other people.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, and I like that one as well. When leaders say yes to everything but deliver nothing well, that also one of the things that we've dealt with is the whole concept of context switching.
Yes.
Which is you get too many priorities over a short period of time, and it's like you come in and you got 5 things on your plate that you need to get done, but you're just scrambling between those 5, and then when you leave at the end of the day, it's like I didn't accomplish anything.
And you're just the amount of time it takes for your context switching, for your brain to actually get reassess what was I doing, where was I at, what was I thinking about, what had I already done, what am I doing now? I mean, it's like it's not productive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good because you do finish it going, I've been sitting here all day, but I didn't actually get anything accomplished. It's frustrating. Yeah.
Well, that's like one of the, if you look at the 5 values in Scrum, the way that you address that is you exercise commitment and focus.
Yeah.
Which is given a clear priority, we're going to commit, we're going to focus on getting it done so that we can check it off, move on to the next.
I'm all about execution.
Yes, you
I
are.
love the
Yes,
following
you
it too. I'm okay with multitasking and switching it up to some extent, but I'm like a dog with a bone. I do not like to leave things that are not finished. It makes me crazy. So, very good. I do have an example of an unhealthy team that I think is kind of good. So a project team is told to innovate. So read into that what you would if you were on the team, what innovate means. But while leadership expects strict cost control, and you may be told that or you may not be told that, right? The team wastes weeks creating bold prototypes only to be told after all that time that they're too risky or it's too expensive or it's not going to work. So you've already invested. You probably have been feeling pretty good because you've been creative and we're coming up with this. We're doing something new and kind of, bold. And then to have that crushed. All those negative things that come out because now I'm going to feel disengaged. I'm going to be holding a grudge and all those things we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't build a healthy team and probably ultimately a healthy organization. And you've got some mistrust happening out of that scenario.
Yeah.
Whether the leadership realized it was probably a lack of communication.
Well, and it's subjective. When you talk about
Totally.
innovate.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah.
That's a domain language thing.
Well,
when you say innovate, what do you mean?
Exactly.
Right.
And because, some people, depending upon companies are like, they have these, this dedicated time, on a weekly basis where somebody just goes off and does something innovative. But you may have a leadership that's like, we want to innovate for the benefit of the company in this particular area. So you need to remove that ambiguity and say, when we talk about innovation, we're talking about in this particular product, we want you to innovate so that there's more functionality in that. Now there's at least a common understanding and you've removed some of the subjectiveness to it.
Well, what are the guardrails? So we need to know what the rules are.
Yeah.
So as somebody giving guidance to people and having the vision for something, you have to give them guardrails.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't know it, then it's probably not ready to be worked on.
Right.
If you can't give that, that's your smell test.
Yep.
That I don't think it's baked enough
Right.
of a vision. So
Yep.
yeah, that's good. What would be some common misalignment scenarios you've got examples for there?
Well, I think it's the strategy versus execution,
Yeah.
right? Where your leadership has a particular vision, but the team has got, a little bit different way of going about the execution for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, once again, that misalignment just leads to waste and frustration. And it's just kind of this spiraling effect. And all of these are very, very solvable problems going back to what we talked about in our previous two episodes, which is really, focusing on that communication.
Yeah.
If you do not have good communication and if you're not able to provide not subjective guidance, but very objective, measurable, type of things that you can say, yes, we're making progress, then that leads to, potential morale issues because you're kind of trying to pin jello to a wall because nobody's provided that clarity or the guardrails to say, this is what we're doing and this is the mode that we have to be operating in.
I was just thinking, because, most organizations have their executive team and they usually have some sort of strategy meeting that they do. And it's the few, key people who are in those meetings. And then they come out and then each of those leaders goes and shares whatever, the movement is going to be for their departments. So you get a little bit of telephone game a little bit because it's that person's interpretation of what's going to happen. And as you were explaining that, I had, I guess, the vision and the memory of people don't like to be micromanaged. And we're not even talking about micromanagement, but I think it ends up being a byproduct sometimes of this scenario as you were talking about that. So if there's bad vision, bad communication, and no guardrails given, the team they go, okay, we're going to go and we're going to innovate and we're going to do this thing and we're feeling excited, and they come back and they're smacked down, right? That's not at all what we were picturing.
Right.
You brought me the wrong rock type of thing. Then I think sometimes, because if you're an executive and that's what your team did, now you're going to kind of overcompensate. I'm going to make sure you guys do exactly the way that I say you do it. And maybe that's where some micromanaging comes in from it.
Yeah.
And it all comes from a lack of clear communication.
Yep.
Right. So those things that we don't like, I think communication is always at the core. So
Yeah, absolutely.
do you have other scenarios you want to share?
Yeah, so the next one is product versus engineering. And this is a scenario where you've got a PM that's driving for velocity, try to get as many features out as possible. And then you've got the engineering team that's focusing on, hey, we've got all this technical debt
Quality.
that's never getting addressed, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't address those two in a balanced fashion, at some point, one of those is going to be a laggard and it's going to be an anchor to your progress, right?
Oh, it's going to break something.
Exactly.
Right?
The longer you go without addressing that technical debt and refactoring that out so that you can move more quickly, the analogy that I always use between software and landscaping is, let's say that you've got a bush that's growing and you go years and years and years without ever pruning it, you come to a point where you're either going to invest a whole lot of time to try to get that thing back in shape, or you're going to uproot it and start over.
Right.
And the same thing happens in software. Either you take the time to maintain it over the years, or you're going to get to the point where you get that decision point where it's like, okay, we're either going to have to invest a tremendous amount of energy, and all of that set of features that we wanted is going to have to be on the sideline while we refactor this thing into a healthy, state, or we're just going to uproot it and build another one from scratch.
Yeah, which is very expensive.
Yeah, neither option is
frustrating.
Beneficial,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not even just technical teams, though, because even as we're talking about this, I'm like, I can think about kind of any sort of team. It's not just product versus engineering or having to do that. If you're in accounting and finance, you still have to go, you still have to prepare for an audit. You still have to do the things. It applies everywhere, right? So it's the planning, the maintenance, all those things that we know we have to do in everything in life applies in these teams and what you're trying to do.
It's a level of discipline that's required.
Yeah. All things are important. So how do you manage that?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. We have also another one here, which I can relate to from many different roles that I've had, but cross-functional confusion. So salespeople are awesome. Salespeople are usually
very optimistic.
Yes, I was trying to say, how is a nice way to say this? That everything is doable, right? And so sometimes I've even had sales teams that have kind of made stuff up. And you're like, what are you talking about? We don't have that product.
Yeah.
Like whatever. But sales teams maybe sell something that the team can't deliver for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about that. That's in 2 years on our roadmap. It's not now type of thing or whatever. Right. So there's some misalignment there that definitely can cause some friction in the organization. You've just upset the apple cart with your customers.
Yeah,
as well.
I was going to say, not only friction within the organization, but now you've got an expectation that may be set, and now you have to live up to it, and that adds the stress. And
or you're just going to be super innovative, and you're going to come out with those other features right away, right? Yeah. What would you say if you were going to give us some hidden costs or things that you might see? We could kind of combine hidden costs and maybe some pain points for misalignment. What would be some of those?
Yeah, I think the misalignment, probably one of the biggest things that it does is it wastes time, it wastes money. And in doing that, it also wastes a lot of your human capital, because those two things can lead to morale issues. And if you start having a demoralized team, then the effectiveness, of what they're producing, the quality of what they're producing is going to go down as well. Burnout from fixing preventable problems. I know working with teams, it's like their frustration is, we knew this was going to happen, and guess what? Now we're in this situation.
Right. We told you.
Yeah. Right?
That is a very big frustration.
Yeah.
And you didn't listen. Why? You didn't listen because you didn't hear them, or you didn't listen because you thought you knew better, or you did whatever that is. Yeah.
Yep. Another one that I think is really very detrimental is just the erosion of trust between the team and leadership. It's one of those things. It's like in sports, you've got a coach and you've got the players, but you need both of those exercising their skills and their competencies in order to win the game.
Right.
And the same thing happens in the organization. And when you start creating those misalignments, it also leads to that siloing. It's that us versus them. And that is not a healthy environment. I've been in those environments where it's like those are not enjoyable. You do not get up every morning and say, I can't wait to go into the office and see what I'm going to be dealing with today. It's just not a happy scenario.
We've got another one here, which I definitely have seen in lots of different ways. Customer dissatisfaction due to inconsistent delivery. Even from like our learning and development world, from like whether you're doing training or something like that, or services type deliveries that we've done, it's usually based on you didn't ask enough questions or right quality questions. The expectations weren't consistent. There's misalignment in all kinds of things that can cause that. Whether it's actually on the person delivering or not, it's probably on both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is not a good feeling.
No, and you can think of it as well. You can build up a lot of loyalty like a restaurant, right? And then for whatever reason, there's a change in management, there's a change in the staff, whatever is going to happen, and all of a sudden your quality goes down. People are expecting this, you get this,
Yeah.
right? Is that dissatisfaction and the misalignment behind the scenes you may not be able to identify, but the symptom is you've got that dissatisfaction in your customer base.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did talk about a lot of these pain points and symptoms, which are consistent with the other 2 episodes that we had. So like, I thought you meant this, but I assumed this. But I think the vague goal, for me, the crux of what we're talking about today is more coming from the vision being set and like the expectations of what's wanted. So, and I've definitely worked with people, and it's usually on uncharted territory. Like you're being asked to come up with something creative that's gonna, like maybe we're making curriculum or something for somebody, and it's not been done. We don't know what we're building, right? And if there's not a good vision provided, and there aren't really any goals, and you got a team of people, it is definitely going to be a misalignment because people are going to interpret. A lot of people are going to go off siloed, and they're going to come up with what they think that means, and it's all wasteful.
Yeah.
Generally, mostly wasteful. So the interpretation part is hard. So that's again where I feel like it's a balancing act. So whoever is giving the vision and is ultimately like responsible for whatever you're doing needs to have that, but also the people working on it, you both need to be asking questions. You both need to be, and you need to have a lot of feedback loops and a lot of face-to-face, like, and showing, right? Here's what I'm thinking before I get too far down the road.
Yep.
Is this what you meant? Or is this what the objectives are? Are these the outcomes you're looking for? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
The longer that you go, and it's very much the old traditional waterfall model, is not good because you've invested so much along the way, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. What else do you see there?
Well, I've seen this, the team saying yes but delivering no.
Yeah.
And it's literally, I can see on their face because I understand what their perspective is. And if they're being asked to do something, yes, verbally they're saying yes.
They're like,
but even as the word is coming out of their mouth, in their mind, they're like, this isn't going to work, or we're not going to be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't come about just out of the moment. There's a history there that has led to that. And I think that's why, you mentioned down here about retrospectives and identifying problems. And I think you had mentioned earlier, either today or in the previous, ask the question, what are we not asking about how things are going, right? It's that ghost trap, that people fall into. Yeah. And I think that's once again, there's history in everything. And as leaders, we need to be able to recognize that and kind of, dig that out and make sure that we're giving the teams the opportunity to, address those and move beyond where we're currently at.
I was just thinking too, because I'm like, I don't want to be throwing shade on leaders who are giving vision, because I also think that's very hard.
Yeah.
Even being a product owner can be very hard because you don't really know. And so that's again where transparency comes in and says, listen, team, here's generally what we're doing. We don't totally know what we're looking for. So we're just going to iterate on this and do the best we can. The more often we can talk and you can ask questions and I can give you feedback and I can go and talk to the customer or whatever, the better we'll be. Like just opening that up and just being transparent about, I'm being vulnerable. I don't have all the answers. That's okay. I think people appreciate that more. And then they're more respectful also of, I'm going to check in because I don't want to leave you hanging, right? And we're on this together.
Yep.
So even just setting something up like that and being honest about it doesn't have to be wasteful.
No.
And you can manage that, right? If you come together as a team that way. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So some of the solutions and recommendations that we've got, and I love this because I love anything that's kind of a cadence. I do and I don't, right? I like cadences that you know what to expect and you can generally plan around things. I don't love being rigid in things. So there's a difference for me. So you got to be flexible when it makes sense as well. But having some clarity around that. So regular syncs or feedback loops, I think they need to be face-to-face, whether they're virtual or in person. Seeing each other and talking to each other, and everybody that needs to be there should be there as much as possible. But you need to validate not just your progress, but your understanding. So be intentional about those cadences, that it's not just some light, okay, so where's everybody at? Okay, good. Nope. We're going to ask literally around.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm randomly going to ask somebody who wasn't here last week, what is your understanding of what we're doing this week or whatever? Like, be very intentional to have clarity around that and have everybody feel okay to go, I honestly kind of don't know or whatever. So what do we need to do from here? And then use different tools to make sure that I believe in the visibility and the shared access to information and having those constant feedback loops. So we like to use boards, right? We'll use Miro or we use Lucid with a customer. Not everybody loves those, but if it's a single place and it's easy tool to use, I don't care about the tool as much as I do about this is the dumping ground for us to prototype, for us to ask questions, for us, whatever the feedback is. We all need to know where that is so we can all see it. And that's the constant place that people update. Yeah. What you got?
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we want to talk about is like the definition alignment. So establish shared definitions. What's done, what's value, what's priority, what's urgent.
Yeah, so you're not making assumptions about those things.
So like what's the difference between priority and urgent?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So depending upon who's delivering that message, you're going to get some ambiguity.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where, going back to the vocabulary, it's a matter of having an understanding, some of it may be very objective, like you have priority 1 through priority N. What's it mean to be, what's an urgent need? Well, guess what? We just got hacked. Right. So those priorities, those are still priorities, but we have to focus effort because now we're in this, sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And I think from a leadership perspective and just the responsiveness of your company as well, to be able to have that clarity, to be able to shift and pivot, especially in this day and age. Once again, just the speed of everything requires you to be very agile, very nimble, very flexible, just respond to the changing world.
Yeah. I like this one because, I like retrospectives. I think I've seen that be a very successful way to manage things and to reset, but map the disconnect. So use different techniques. Use retrospectives facilitated with intent, right? So setting the context for something, journey mapping, cross-functional reviews, whatever you're going to do, I'll try to get alignment on those things that are misaligned. So it's not just when you hear alignment, you think we need to align to business goals. Yes, you do, but alignment means a lot more things than that. Yeah. So are we aligned as a team? Are we aligned on skill set, on who's doing what we thought we had the capability to do versus what we have? There's a lot of things, right, that could come out of that.
Yep.
The meanings is huge. Kevin and I think you mentioned in a different episode that we are now certified for Patrick Lencioni's Working Genius, which is fantastic. And one of the things that we took out of our certification class, and they've talked about on their podcast, is they've got there's 6 geniuses, and depending on what the goal is, let's say for a meeting, that one of the things that we would advise now, our teams that we work with, is when you understand what the geniuses are, that you would actually set the intention and expectation for a meeting based on that. So even if you don't have that genius, your expectation is this is the point of this meeting. Right. So I'm going to drop those other things that I think that I like to do or that I prefer, because that's not the intent of what we're trying to get out of this. That's a huge alignment right there, right? So without explaining all the thing about it, it's very much just about setting the intention for what is it we're trying to do.
Right.
And that seems very simple, but it is missed most of the time.
Yeah. And you talk about simple, that's one of my favorite, agile principles, simplicity, the art of maximizing the work not done. And when you talk about meetings, part of it is you may not have the right audience. If you just assume that, okay, you're on the team, everybody's on the team is going to go to this meeting.
Or based on role.
Yeah, but you have to look at what's the intent of that meeting. If you're in a strategy session or you're in a brainstorming, there are individuals that thrive in that particular environment. There's others that it drives them absolutely crazy because they just want to get on with it and get into the details.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an absolute brilliant observation, that when you're setting your meetings, include what the geniuses are there, so that if I'm somebody who's on the tenacity side, which is I like doing the details and getting things done, but this meeting is talking about pie in the sky, on the vision side of things. at least I'm going in there with the appropriate expectation.
Or
as
the
opposed-
tenacity person's going to be multitasking, getting their other stuff
Yeah,
done.
probably. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, but that's definitely an alignment thing that
It
it's
is.
like, it's such an obvious thing that we've been working for a long time. It's never naturally occurred to us that like, that's a
Yeah.
simple thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because we also run the thing of like, we're trying to be inclusive of everybody and we're
Right.
trying to be transparent with the information and not to be a hypocrite because those are still important. This is more about context for what it is. And maybe that's not the best people to, you can know the information, but for meeting what we need to get out of this, maybe
Yeah.
we have these kind of people come to this meeting.
Right.
And it's a shift. It's a paradigm shift from the traditional, like, this is your role, this is your department, this is who you are. It's a totally different way to look at it. So yeah, more of that to come later because I think it's ingenious. Yeah. What else you got, Kevin?
I like this next one where it says leaders go first. It says leaders should model clarity and call out misalignment without blame.
Yes.
That last part
Without blame.
is absolutely critical
Yeah.
because if you're pointing a finger, at somebody, you've just decreased that trust capital
For everybody, actually.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody else observes and is like, well,
I'm
if he's
never
gonna,
saying anything.
yeah, exactly. If he's going to treat them like that, then I'm not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to say anything. The next one I think is kind of subtle, but I think it's really important. It says, invite clarity, don't command it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, once again, that's a modeling behavior, right? If you want to provide clarity, one, exercise that yourself and don't set a different expectation on others that you're not willing to live up to
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And I
Sometimes
think
your own advice is the hardest to.
it is.
live by.
Yeah. I mean, I've found that, I'm great at dispensing advice, but I suck at taking my own advice.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the last one we've got is reinforced with rituals. I really don't like the word ritual, but we get the point. So it's kind of like the cadence thing, but it's got all the bits, right? So whatever your daily touch points are. So if you're, you have daily scrums or you're a different team and you're not necessarily doing scrum, but you have daily touch points, what are those and how are we focusing on alignment in those meetings? So having interaction with the outcome. So we talk a lot about outcome versus output. Sorry, my brain was kind of having a moment there. So maybe output is important, but what is the ultimate expected outcome that we're striving for, which is more important than a lot of times than the output, because output's kind of, you can be busy and have a lot of output. Doesn't necessarily mean you met the mark, right?
Right.
So having, with whoever it is, your stakeholder, having some form of intentional connection point with them on that. So you're making sure along the way, again, bad news doesn't get better over time. So the quicker and the more constant that you're checking in on that sort of thing with ultimately whoever your customer or stakeholder is good. Maybe you're having town halls. Maybe you're having something creative on how you're trying to get feedback and you're having some sort of vision and alignment meetings, just so everybody, even from a marketing perspective, if we're as an organization trying to do something new in the company, it's going to take more than one time of telling people what we're doing and why we're doing it and why alignment is important. Right. It could be we're doing a whole new health insurance thing, right? It could be, it doesn't have to be just the down and dirty, like we're building product type stuff. It's kind of anything your company's trying to do. Alignment's important.
Yeah.
And if you don't have alignment, then there's opposite of that, means you're probably wasting money and energy and everything else, right? So yeah, so those are some really good solutions and recommendations that we've got. I've got a couple closing reflections here. I love this one. Misalignment isn't a flaw in the people. It's It's a failure in shared meeting. Yeah. So it's like, and we kind of do go to the people part a lot, right? Like, you're the problem. I always think of Vince Vaughn. You're a problem. You're a real problem.
Big problem.
Right? Yeah. But it's the communication and the lack of things, that the misalignment that is the problem. So let's focus on that, and not you, but us, and how do we fix that type of thing. Great teams don't avoid conflict. They navigate misalignment early and often. So we work with agile teams, and we always tell even like new software developers and engineers that are working. I don't know how many times I've had people stand up and tell me their failure they've made on the team, and it's very uncomfortable. They don't like
you
it.
kind of command that.
I do command it because I
gonna
try and
celebrate.
I normalize it in a celebration because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody fails. If you keep repeating the same mistakes, that's not good.
Right.
If you share it and you learn from it and others learn from it, that's something to celebrate, right? So people need to own it. I love to set that up, and it is fun when they're not comfortable with it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But the conflict, I do not avoid conflict. I actually look forward to conflict a
Yes,
lot,
you do.
which a lot of people do not like, right? I don't like, well, I kind of don't even mind hairy conflict, to be honest with you, but I prefer to deal with the conflict, deal with the problem. I like to be direct. Let's figure it. Let's just get it out. Open kimono, as we say. We can't fix something that we don't know about. You have an assumption. I have an assumption. They have an assumption. How do we come this together? Now, how do we hear each other? And then what are we going to do about it? What are our actionable things about this? Less about you did me wrong, more about we, right? But teams that don't manage a conflict and don't deal with those things, definitely going to be misaligned. I don't know how you do get in alignment if you don't manage the conflict. Right? So that's what I had. Did you have any other final thoughts?
No, I think we've covered a lot. Once again, I think when we talk about this kind of wrapping this particular, series up, just having that clarity and the alignment and make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction, make sure that everybody understands where they're going. And once again, these are not hard problems to fix, especially if you've got communication and a continual mindset of continuing or improving that communication and that collaboration. So.
Well, and you're planning to fail, which sounds weird, but really nobody's going to be 100% all the time.
It's recognizing reality.
Yeah, it is. So when you give yourself grace and you give the team grace, and as a leader, you give the company grace, and you're like, you know what? Assuming good intentions, and I thought I was clear, maybe I wasn't clear. So what can I learn from this? All of us can kind of have more self-awareness and look inside, and all you can do is aim to recorrect. And if you have the intention of doing that, then a failure is not a big deal. If you have, lots of failures, and like that's the puzzle that we've got, is that or the pattern that we have is that we have a lot of then we've got a different situation, right? So yeah, I think I like to celebrate failure. I think it means that we're moving forward. We're moving. Mm-hmm. We're doing something.
Well, and it's pressing outside of those comfort zones that we, just by our very nature, we gravitate towards those things that, we're not stretching. Yeah. And if you have that mindset, from a cultural standpoint, that it's okay to fail, it's okay to make a mistake. I tell my teams, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning.
You're not, yeah.
So I think that's one of the things.
And you're afraid. You're afraid to go and try. So if you are given some big, hairy, audacious goal, something you've been given to go do, you will not even know where to start. Right. So you can't be innovative, which our world kind of needs now. That's the reality of business today. So
absolutely.
It's exciting. Well, thank you for joining us for, I guess that's the end of our first series, which is kind of celebratory. And we'll be starting our next series and probably promoting what that's going to be very soon. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Again, we love any feedback you can give us. Join us on our socials. We'll be coming up with new topics down the road. We've got a year planned out, but we are very agile and happy to move around things as they make sense. So if you have things that you'd like to discuss, send that in to us. Also, we're going to be doing different interviews in different ways with different cool people all over the world, really. So we're excited for some of those too. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.